share the magic with everybody. That's what is going to get Bitcoin adopted globally. How exciting is this? So with no further ado, I would love to introduce you to Hermann from Bitcoin Ekasi. He's a co-founder. My man, I love you, brother. Enjoy.
How's it, everyone? Yeah, it's absolutely awesome to be here. Thank you very much for doing this. Yeah, it's so cool to be surrounded by Bitcoiners. It makes me feel a bit more normal. When I'm in normal society, I feel a bit weird, but around you guys, yeah, especially at a proper Bitcoin conference, it's fantastic. I just want to share with you a little bit about what we are doing with Bitcoin Ekasi. Yeah, the mission really is quite simple. We were inspired by Bitcoin Beach to try and do something similar. Obviously, it's slightly different on the ground. There are differences, but very much inspired by the story that I saw coming out of El Salvador in El Zonte. Basically, what we're doing is we're moving a pre-existing non-profit organization onto a Bitcoin standard. We accept donations in Bitcoin for that NPO. We pay salaries of the people who run that organization in Bitcoin. And we're onboarding local merchants so that those coaches can go and spend their Bitcoin salaries to live. And it's all about education at the end of the day. We'd like to educate the community that we are based in on Bitcoin, but obviously the wider community as well. As Mike mentioned, ideally, we want to reach beyond the Bitcoin space and inspire people outside of Bitcoin to look in and see, look, this is what you can do with this thing. The community that we're based in is a typical South African township. The word Ekasi is a colloquial term that refers to a township. It's used mostly by people who live in the township. It's got a very positive reference to it, despite the fact that it's a pretty shitty situation to live in. The word is used by people in a very sort of a vibey way. It refers to the vibe that you have in these communities because life happens outside on the streets for the most part. It's comprised mostly of informal settlements. People build houses from scrap material, whatever they can find. And a lot of people live without basic services. My wife and I founded an organization in 2010 called the Surfer Kids. That NPO has been working in one of these township communities since then. It's been a registered non-profit for a while, and we've got headquarters based at a local beach in Mossel Bay, Diaz Beach. We operate a daily program. We've got about 30 to 40 kids attending on a daily basis, and we use surfing, or we have been using surfing for a long time to try and cultivate that mentality of long-term commitment. So if you learn to do something difficult, it teaches you the value of long-term commitment. The program is run by a team of coaches. The team is very important. I'm just here representing that team, but obviously I'm not doing this alone. These are the guys that do all the hard work. I also work pretty hard, but these guys are on the ground, in the trenches, so to speak. We've got senior coach, and he's assisted by 3 junior coaches. All 3 of those junior coaches were recruited as small kids. So I saw them growing up in the program, and yeah, they've learned to become good surfers, and as such, they can assist the senior guy in running it. We've also introduced life saving into the program. That's a very recent addition. And we have also recruited a primary school teacher. And this is really, for me, what it's all about. The teaching aspect is the most important part. Because I think if Bitcoin is adopted, it has to be adopted voluntarily. It can't be forced onto anyone. It's got to be a voluntary choice. But if you're going to make a voluntary choice, it's got to be an informed decision. Because if you're not making an informed decision, then what we are doing is irresponsible. So to do it in a responsible way, we've got to focus on education first. So we're doing adoption through education, really. This is why the teaching aspect of this is the most important thing for me in the entire project. Teaching education first and then adoption. We also pay the kids a small Bitcoin reward on a bi-weekly basis. They get this for attending classes, for good behavior, for just being generally responsible. And then they can go out and spend that at the merchants that we have onboarded. That's our teacher over there. It's Miss Nomsa. She's entirely new to Bitcoin, but we're trying to fast track her Bitcoin education. And she runs the educational program. We opened an education center in September. That's with the support of Paxful and built with Bitcoin. We're very grateful for their support in helping us open that center. This is where the teacher runs the Bitcoin educational classes. We also focus a lot on sort of basic skills, mathematics, English, that sort of thing. There's no point in trying to explain to a child how Bitcoin works if they cannot count to 100. So, it's located in the heart of the township, and really what it is, it's a center where everyone or anyone can walk in and come and ask questions. It's very important to have a presence on the ground, a physical presence, because that person-to-person relationship, it's irreplaceable. We can't send these people YouTube videos or stuff like that. That's not going to educate them on Bitcoin. It's got to be done in person by a person who speaks their language. The center is open 5 days a week, and anyone can walk in and come and ask questions about Bitcoin. The merchants that we have onboarded, the onboarding is done by our senior coach, Lutando. I think he's watching online right now, so shout out to him. He's watching the live stream. He onboarded the first merchant in August 2021. That's the lady down there, Nosihle. She's still on board, and she's holding on to a significant amount of Bitcoin. Despite the bear market, it's quite inspiring to see. If we go back into a bull market, I think her life will change significantly. But most of the shops are cashing out, and I think that's to be expected. We have about 10 shops on board. These are your typical corner stores that are run out of, sort of small brick buildings or containers or whatever that people can find. I think the biggest reason we have seen adoption is because it's an easy form of digital payments. So, the traditional industry, banking, it puts up these walls of paperwork and fees. And so people generally operate with cash. In the township, the economy is entirely cash-based. And so having a digital payment that is easily accessible and relatively cheap, that's what gets people interested to start off with. The onboarding is all voluntary. Obviously, we don't force this onto anyone. And we don't expand very aggressively. We've kept it small on purpose because there are not many people spending Bitcoin in the township. A township in South Africa is generally an area that most people avoid, locals and tourists. So the only people spending Bitcoin in that township are the coaches whose salaries we pay in Bitcoin. So there's really no point in us onboarding 100 shops because we've only got 9 people spending Bitcoin. So that's why we've kept it small as well. Next one. There we go. No, that's not. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, just in conclusion, we've got 5 people who earn salaries that are paid in Bitcoin. They work full-time. We've got 4 part-time salaries being paid in Bitcoin. We've onboarded more or less 10 merchants. It depends on what day of the week we're talking about because they're not always open. But yeah, there's 10 merchants and 3 of them are well-stocked grocery stores where the coaches can buy anything they want. We've got a car wash on board and a couple of barbershops. And really the reason for doing all of this, I think there's 2 main reasons. The first reason is obviously I've been, both my wife and I have been heavily invested in that community for a long time. And so we saw what was happening in Alzonte, and we saw that introducing Bitcoin could expand the type of empowerment that we've been trying to teach these kids. It could expand that to a much larger audience. So, I can hope to change the lives of 40 kids if I've got a program for 40 children, but if I introduce Bitcoin into the community, maybe I can change the lives of 4,000 people rather than just 40. Because using Bitcoin changes your mindset. And I know it sounds cliche, but it really does. I mean, we've seen that with kids who are earning in Bitcoin. The mere fact that they're now dealing with an asset with a price that goes up or down makes them ask questions like, where does value come from? And these are questions that they've never asked before because they're dealing with a currency that goes slowly over time. The inflation is slow, but they never really think about where value comes from. And now they've got this thing that's going up and down in price, and it makes them ask these questions. Also, looking at the long-term price outlook, it also makes them, it gives them hope for the future. Bitcoin goes up and down, but fiat only goes down. They see this as a sort of yes, it's volatile, but it's an opportunity that they've never had before. Because if you only got $1 a week, what do you invest in? There isn't much out there. And then beyond that, beyond the community itself, you know, I was inspired by what happened in Alzonte, and I hope that we can inspire other people to do the same thing. We don't want to expand wider than what we are operating now. We want other people to go and copy this and do it where they are. This is how it grows. It's, you know, decentralized like the Bitcoin network itself. And particularly if we can expand beyond the Bitcoin community and show people outside of Bitcoin that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this is what it's really all about. It's not about speculation. It's not about trading. It's not about making money. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about giving people a form of money that is just accessible. I mean, you know, it gives people access where they haven't had that before. And I think people outside of Bitcoin really need to see that, and I think this is one way of showing that. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Herman.